It was my experience that Mr. Trump inflated his total assets when it served his purposes, such as trying to be listed amongst the wealthiest people in Forbes, and deflated his assets to reduce his real estate taxes.
We've known for a while that Trump uses different valuations for different purposes, but a new ProPublica expose shows in black and white just how that worked with Trump Tower. Heather Vogel got her hands on business documents that show essentially two sets of books for the property, and she joins me to explain her reporting now. All right, what are the documents you got your hands on?
All right, well, the documents I got, there's two sets. One of them is property tax records that I got from a New York City agency that handles appeals for property tax valuations. The other are documents that were disclosures that were made when Trump's debt became part of commercial mortgage-backed securities. And so there are disclosures in both of those, and some of them, there is some differences in how they're put together, but there's some numbers that should be very close. And what I found was some really key numbers that weren't. They were very far off. Yeah,
you say as December 2011 and June 2012, respectively, Trump's business told the lender, this is when they want to inflate the value, right? It's in their interest for the value to be as high as possible, that 99% and 98.7% of the tower's commercial space was occupied. In tax filings, however, Trump's businesses said the building's occupancy was 83% in January 2012, the same year later, right? So they're telling two different people, two different occupancy rates that should be the same.
Yes, yes. And the follow-up occupancy was also 83% for the property tax. So it wasn't like, that possibly they landed a new tenant or something. There was maybe some explanation for this huge jump. They were consistent in reporting the gaps, if that makes sense.
So I guess the question is, can you do that?
Well, there's nobody that looks at both, but each of them are supposed to be prepared accurately. They're supposed to be drawn from financial statements. They're supposed to be vetted by both the lender, by the credit rating agencies, and also by the property tax officials who are both putting together his original valuation and then also looking at his appeal. So there's a lot of eyes on each set, and they're supposed to be right in both cases.
Is this the only time that we have of evidence of this sort of approach, or are there other examples as well?
Yeah, this was a follow-up story that I did to another I did in October that was basically the same sorts of discrepancies in two other buildings that belong to Trump. And one is 40 Wall Street, which is his historic skyscraper in the financial district. And the other is the Trump International Hotel and Tower. And he doesn't own most of that building anymore, but he does own some commercial space there that he has a loan out on. And all of these discrepancies occurred during refinances that he was taking out, refinancings. And they were all with the same lender.
So I guess my question is this is the question of the era in some ways. How common is this? If you scratched a whole bunch of real estate developers in New York, would you see these discrepancies, which are essentially, to me, seem like kind of gray area fraud, if not outright illegal? Or the people you talked to who looked at this, did they say, this is skating pretty close to the line, you don't see this a lot?
The expert, obviously nobody is doing this, on a wide kind of scale where we could get an idea of exactly how right and how wrong these numbers often were. But what I'm, talking to professionals who work in this area and see this stuff a lot, what I was told was that these numbers should be closer, that folks would expect them to be closer, that folks are relying on these numbers to make all kinds of financial decisions, that they're important numbers, and that these are, it's not okay that they're not more similar. Is what experts told me.
Yeah, not okay that they're not more similar is a good takeaway, and also makes you wonder about if you did get his tax returns fully, what you would find there. And Heather Vogel, thanks for joining us.
Thank you.
Hey there, I'm Chris Hayes from MSNBC. Thanks for watching MSNBC on YouTube. If you want to keep up to date with the videos we're putting out, you can click subscribe just below me, or click over on this list to see lots of other great videos.